is that time of the week, time for another edition of Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star-Telegram sports columnist Mac Engel, and I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, my home in Fort Worth, Texas. And that gentleman to my right is actually in the town where I grew up, in Indianapolis, Indiana, Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. Shows that media badge there, good man. He is in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the NFL Scouting Combine.
Sponsored by Verizon.
They've got a sponsor now to watch guys run around and high jump in their underwear. They got a sponsor. Clarence, I'm going to give you the heads up, and it's about 72 degrees here in Fort Worth. Little overcast, so not ideal. Tell me about the good weather in my native hometown. I've lived there in a long time. How was the weather in Indianapolis?
I was just talking about this with some fellow writers earlier today, and this is probably the best weather we've ever had for the combine. And it is 64 degrees.
Ooh, wow.
I've never had weather this good in all the years I've come to the combine. And, we've had freezing temperatures, snow, ice, everything. It's always in the teens or 30s or something like that, but it's 64 degrees today.
Yeah, you won the lottery ticket there. Before we get into the Dallas Cowboys off-season topics, which with the combine, they always have a lot of good content to go over. I'm going to ask you a quick favor because we did talk about this last week, your daughter winning an award at the NAACP Awards last week in Los Angeles. For those of us who follow you on social media, I read about your daughter in the Star-Telegram, Channing. Can you give us a quick synopsis of what that experience was like to be at that award show, with your daughter, to be at that award show with your daughter, who was one of the award winners?
I mean, we won't be talking about Cowboys. I mean, I could go all day.
Who'd you get to meet? Who'd you get to meet?
It was surreal. It's just a whole surreal experience. And, again, you're proud of your child, so proud that, I was her plus one. She was, usually I'm one, like your daughter, you're getting her into things and, taking her to things, and they are always, Clarence's kids or Chill's daughters, but now I'm Channing's dad and just going and being her plus one and riding her coattails. She was on the red carpet and just getting the award and mingling with so many movers and shakers and important people. It was just an awesome experience and surreal experience, one that, we'll remember the rest of our lives.
Well, I know I've congratulated you a lot and Channing a lot, but I feel like I want to do it again. So congratulations to all of you again for that great achievement. And I'm jealous that you got that experience. I think that's fantastic. But let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys. What I would say is probably their first real week of activity in the offseason where guys like Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones will make himself available tomorrow at AT&T Stadium. But Stephen is there at the Combine in Indianapolis, and he came right out and said it. He told reporters he's not so sure about the future of Amari Cooper with the Dallas Cowboys. Clarence, you came out and wrote what I thought was a very fair piece about Amari Cooper, which is if this guy's a number one wide receiver, and he is, then you have to use him like a number one wide receiver. First things first, in light of what Steven said, do you think Amari Cooper will be with the Cowboys in 2022?
Well, in light of what Steven said, and in light of our conversation with Mike McCarthy the other day, I don't think he will be back. I mean, I think that, Steven, you'll see it's a dollars and cents thing. It's a system issue. If you're not gonna use them, that doesn't hesitate. It's not about how good I think Amari is. It's about how we're using him, and that's not good use of our dollars if he's not going to be the main guy and paying him as a main guy. And the Cowboys aren't using him as a main guy, and they're not going to prioritize him as a main guy. So why should the Cowboys and Jerry and Steven pay him $20 million a year?
Clarence, I can understand the logic. I can understand the rationale. What I don't get, and you wrote it, you're right. Why can't you use this guy and feature him the way he should be featured and feature him the way he was when he first got here? Because it's not like this guy's, playing through a blown out hamstring or he's 38 years old and he's done. He's in a prime window, Clarence, and he only had like 65 catches last year. He's behind Dalton Schultz. What was wrong scheme-wise, design-wise, that allowed him to be so, I guess, just
Well, I guess that's what the
underwhelming?
disconnect is, because it's not necessarily about him, and they don't think anything is wrong with the scheme. The scheme allowed them to have what are statistically one of the number one ranked offensive league. They like throwing to the open guy. They like spreading the ball around. That's what they want. It's a disconnect with the scheme in the salary cap and the pay structure. It's not necessarily a disconnect with the scheme and how they feel they should be winning and how they feel they can't win. So those are necessarily two different conversations. But again, the bottom line is the bottom line. If I'm not paying him $20 million to be the third most targeted receiver on the team.
Is this going to be a situation where the wide receiver leaves? Let's say he leaves. I'm going to give you two names. Let's say he leaves. We saw A.J. Green have a phenomenal career with the Cincinnati Bengals. He goes to Arizona. He's okay. He's pretty good, but he gets hurt, and it didn't really burn the Bengals literally at all because they replaced him with such good players, namely Jamar Chase. The one that jumps off the page to me that a team let him go too early was Anquan Boldin. And Anquan Boldin had a lot of good football left after he left Arizona. Multiple teams, in fact. If they let him go, if the Cowboys let Amari Cooper go, are we looking at A.J. Green next season, or are we looking at Anquan Boldin next season?
Well, I mean, I think that you're looking from, I guess it's a different lens you're looking from. Number one, he's not A.J. Green because A.J. Green was old.
Older. He was,
he
that's
was
fair.
older, and he was
right.
at the end of his career.
Right. Bolden was not. Bolden wasn't.
Bolden was not, but it's not about what Amari does wherever he goes. It's a matter of what the Cowboys can do without him. And so if he goes somewhere else and has a phenomenal year, good for him. The question is, what are the Cowboys going to look like? Can they win without him? They believe they can.
So the way you're talking, and when Stephen Jones said that, could have knocked me over with a feather. I thought, wow, he's gone. So now you're basically looking at CeeDee Lamb, certainly not a bum. You're looking at Michael Gallup coming back for pennies on the dollar compared to what he thought he was going to get and going into a free agent season that was basically ruined by injury. And then you're looking at Cedric Wilson,
who's a free agent as well.
Who's a free agent as well. I'm assuming he's coming back. I mean, Clarence is and I didn't even mention Dalton Schultz, and I don't even know what they're going to do with him.
Well, and they may find themselves having to tag him because they have no other tight ends. I don't think that Blake Jarwin is going to play with the Cowboys again. I think, just talking to them, I don't think he's going to be able to come back from his injury. They have no one else to turn to a tight end.
They're going to tag Dalton Schultz?
Well, it's tag better than signing him a 4-year deal. You can tag him for $10 million and give him a deal for $12 million or whatever else. But, I mean, I think it's an option. There's a good chance they could tag Dalton Schultz. That's one way to keep him. But also they're going to draft one. This tight end, this draft is heavy in tight ends. And so look for them to target a tight end in the draft. But I think they at least will try to get by this year by tagging Dalton Schultz and not signing him to a long-term extension.
Clarence, before we get on to the next subject, let's just play pretend for a minute. Dallas Cowboys 2022 depth chart at wide receiver is pretty much CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson, and Michael Gallup. Is that good enough?
Well, you got Simi Fehoko, who they drafted last year. Obviously, wide receiver out of Stanford.
I don't care about Stanford wide receivers.
And again, that's another position they could target at some point in the draft too.
Forget who they could draft. I want to know if you think CeeDee Lamb,
I don't think they're better at receiver without Amari Cooper.
I
don't think they're a better
with you.
Football team without Amari Cooper.
No, I totally agree.
Amari Cooper made Dak Prescott a $40 million quarterback. And the question, now they believe Dak Prescott really can fly without Amari Cooper. We'll see.
All right, let's move on to the next high dollar player he's not really on the fence. He really wasn't going into this last season anyways. But were you surprised? I hate these questions, but I'm going to ask anyways. Clarence, were you surprised Stephen Jones came out and said, Zeke Elliott's coming back? And that's a guy I want on my football team. Look at the injuries he played through. None of those things is incorrect, mind you. And I think the way Zeke Elliott played through those injuries last season, man, that was admirable as hell. He really did a nice job. But I think anybody with a brain who's aware of the wear and tear on NFL running backs would have to look at Zeke Elliott and say, man, I don't know about this. Now, the contract is the contract, but the fact that Steven came out as strong as he did that one catch you off guard a little bit? It did me.
Not really, because he had no choice. I mean, his contract was guaranteed last year. The genius of this whole deal is Rocky Arsenal kicked their butt in the negotiation.
He destroyed them.
He kicked their butt in negotiation. Not only did he get a 6-year, $90 million extension with 4 years, $50 million guaranteed during a time with the decline of the running back position, and people see that you shouldn't pay running backs, but he also triggered clauses in there where they had to decide on 2022 before the 2021 season. Okay, so his 2022 contract was guaranteed to last March. So no matter what he did this year, he was going to be on the team in 2022. That's the reality, and that's what Stephen Jones had to. His contract, he was going to be on the roster regardless. So he has to say, yeah, we love him, we think he can win, because it's $30 million. It would cost him $30 million to move away from Zeke Elliott this year. He has an $18 million cap hit, which is still too high for a running back, and too high for a running back on the decline. But it's still better than having to pay $30 million to have him off the team.
Clarence,
so they have no choice but to keep him.
You said it. We all said it. If he gets healthy, which he should, it's a long off season. Doesn't have to do anything except play video games and, have fun. Any chance he can have one more good spurt season, like a 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, or is that Zeke gone?
No,
I think it's gone.
He can be productive. He can be productive as he was early in the year. Is he worth the $18 million cap hit?
No.
Is he worth a $12 million salary? If you look at going back to 2009, the average salary of a starting running back on a Super Bowl team is like $1.1 million. Okay, teams do not win Super Bowls with spending big money at the running back position.
Wouldn't you agree, though, real quick? Wouldn't you agree, though, he was slightly different in the sense that
he was supposed to be different, just like Christian McCaffrey was supposed to be different, just like Todd Gurley was supposed to be different, just like our man in Tennessee was supposed to be different.
Derrick Henry, you're right.
At the end of the day, the teams that are in the Super Bowl are not paying their running backs a lot of money.
Oh, my God. And go back and watch the Super Bowl. Not that I ever intend to watch that Super Bowl again. The Rams average like 1.9 yards per rush. Zeke's a hell of a good player. He's a great pro, but you just don't need it. Joe Mixon, look what the Bengals got Joe Mixon. Now, I understand there was a lot of questions about him coming out of Oklahoma, but you just don't need to do it. Can you?
No, you don't, because you can always go get a guy.
Yep.
You can go get, two Tony Pollards or like 4 running backs in the league out of Memphis, and we never heard of them in college. Seriously.
No, I know you're right.
It's like they're all productive backs. You don't have to spend that kind of money, and it's a shame, because I grew up idolizing the running back. I grew up in the golden era, the 70s, 80s, the OJs and the Marcus Allen,
Tony Dorsett,
Eric Dickerson,
Walter Payton.
That was the glamour position.
Yep.
It's no longer the glamour position.
No, it's just treated like a diaper or a pair of socks. You can just get them anywhere. It's too bad. But, I understood why the Cowboys made that deal when they did it. It was a terrible deal, and everybody knew it was going to burn them. The fact is, since they gave him that money, they haven't won a playoff game. He's been hurt. He's played hurt, but he's been hurt too.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that was under the old faulty Garrett philosophy. We got to win, and we believe we win with a running game. It's Garrett, and they're trying to appease Garrett. We think we can win with Garrett, and his style is the old 90s Cowboys with the Emmitt Smith running game being the focus of your team. And again, that's really not how you play football today.
No, it's changed so much.
And since then, Dak Prescott has been, in the passing game, has been the strength of the offense, not the running game.
No, but the results are the same. They don't have playoff games. Speaking of Dak Prescott, good transition. Mike McCarthy revealed today more good news about our favorite Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback. He's had yet another surgery. I've lost count. But the good news for Dak Prescott is that the surgery that he has had this offseason is not on his right shoulder. It's not on his throwing shoulder. It's on his other shoulder. It's his left shoulder. So I guess that's good news. What did he do? Sleep wrong or something? Because I don't think you want your 25 or 26-year-old quarterback racking up as many surgeries as he's had the last 12 to 14 months. Am I wrong?
No, you don't. I mean, you never want surgery, but it was something that was bothering him. Again, it was his non-throwing shoulder. It did not affect him down the stretch. It wasn't why he's played decline late in the season. Certainly, he's overcome 2 surgeries on the ankle, and he had a shoulder issue and throwing shoulder issue in training camp. Then he had the calf strain. During the season, they caused him to miss 1 game, but this is something that cropped up that he was not feeling well. It was bothering him while he was sleeping, so they went and got it cleaned up. It's not going to impact his ability to participate in the offseason program for the first time in 3 years. He will not miss anything. It's very minor. There's no concern. It's just something that they want to get cleaned up.
You buy that? I don't.
Yeah, I buy it. Yeah, I mean, I actually buy it, and because again, there's nothing. It's his non-throwing shoulder. I mean, what could it be?
No,
long as it's not a Tony Romo collarbone.
Right. Yeah.
Which those once you break them, you can continue to break them. It's not any of that. It's just a cleanup.
Here's my concern. It's one more thing. Now, I know he's a young guy and he's still in great shape. He's a hell of an athlete, but it's one more thing. And anytime they got to cut you open, it's not great. And hey, for the doctor, hey, it's minor surgery. Well, yeah, it's minor. It's minor for you. It ain't minor for me. If they're cutting you open, yeah, okay, that's not ideal. And I say this just as my own, I'm looking down the barrel of a surgery I don't want to have. I'm not a professional athlete. I cover them though. I just think it's just one more thing. And I don't want to say injury prone because I think that's unfair to him, but this is a lot.
But you can't say injury prone because he doesn't miss games. Outside of the fractured ankle, he did not miss a game through the first 4 or 5 seasons of his career. He had the fractured ankle. He missed 1 game last year. He doesn't miss games. So I wouldn't, because injury prone means you're not available.
Right.
He has been available.
Nope. He's played through everything that he could play through, within reason, of course. But I'm concerned. It's just one more thing. And I wouldn't have guessed it just given the way he's built. That's a big guy. Romo was a little bit smaller. Dak Prescott's a big dude. But it's, but if the fact is, if he can participate in a full off season, like you said, for the first time in 3 years, that's great news. And hopefully it means even better play that he has in 2022. And he looks more like he did in the first 6 games of 2021, as opposed to the last 6 or 7.
And put it all in perspective, the last 2 off seasons, Dak Prescott, the contract, the injury, all of that was the main topic of conversation. The only thing we got to talk about with Dak is a minor shoulder surgery this year. He's going to participate in the offseason program. The contract is done. It's not hanging over their heads. They got all that together. So it's a blip compared to what they had to deal with in the questions about Dak and his future the 2 previous off seasons.
Yeah, and that part of it's pretty good. Let's move on to the last topic here on the Dallas Cowboys Overtime. So Mike McCarthy has been a source of a person of interest, as it were, as it relates to what his boss thinks about him. And Mike has talked a little bit about that. He went on the Rich Eisen show a week or 2 ago and talked about the narratives and talked his way around the obvious, which is sometimes it's not always a lot of fun to work for Jerry Jones, even though as much fun as Jerry is, being his head coach does come with certain realities that I think now he is experiencing for the first time, something that Jason Garrett, Wade Phillips, Bill Parcells, Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Barry Switzer, and Jimmy Johnson all experience, which is if you want this job, if you want to work with Jerry, you better get used to Jerry in front of a camera who will say things that will give the appearance potentially of the head coach being undermined.
Grinding away.
Clarence, do you think at all Mike has stepped into this situation and is now finally realizing, this is what this is? He's not quitting, but is he having maybe an idea like, this is what this is like?
Yeah, I think that we talked to him today about the differences between the climate, the atmosphere, the environment, the narratives in Dallas than there were certainly in Green Bay when they didn't talk about anything and Jerry talks about everything, whether it's revealing starting lineups or injuries on the radio when they're trying to, keep it in house, to the Mike McCarthy to the Sean Payton stuff, to the Dan Quinn stuff, and all the stuff in the offseason that's part of it. And he's just said he's adopted the attitude. Number one, Jerry addressed it. He said Jerry came to him and addressed and made a point to address the Sean Payton stuff to let him know they're good. So that's the new information he gave. He said Jerry came to him and addressed it, but he said he has an attitude that as long as it doesn't affect winning, he's about winning. He's not going to let it get to him. He understands that this is part of the culture of being with the Cowboys. A lot of things that go along with part of the culture of being the Cowboys, but he's not going to let it bother him as long as it doesn't affect winning. When it affects winning, that's when he has a problem. That's when everybody will know he has a problem. But as long as it doesn't affect winning and it doesn't affect the locker room, doesn't affect how he approaches the locker room, the things he does in the locker room, he has found a way to live with it.
Clarence, you've covered this team a lot longer than I have. Your Twitter bio is absolutely hysterical, by the way, about your resume covering the Cowboys and how bad they've been, or average they've been. You and I both know, you better than me, that the way Jerry carries himself, even though he says it doesn't affect winning, you and I both know, everybody who's ever played for that team, especially in the last 25 years, who the real guy in charge is. And if Mike McCarthy doesn't think that doesn't affect winning, he's delusional. And I don't think he's a dumb guy.
No, but all he can do is control what he can control. And he believes that he has control of the players in the locker room. And he claims that, talking to people in the building, that the culture right now, as far as winning, is better than it's ever been.
How the hell would he know? He's been here for like 3 years. 1 year was a COVID year.
Just telling you what the man said. He talked to other people in the building, that the culture.
What do you think? You've been around here a lot longer than Mike McCarthy. What do you think of the culture? And it's the best it's ever been.
No, sadly, we haven't been around.
I know.
Because of COVID. We haven't really seen, the behind the scenes stuff. We haven't been in the locker room as we, would have been able to do in the past. But that's his mindset. That's how he had it. And it's really more about how he is dealing with something that he can't control. Yeah. And you got to find a way to deal with it. Certainly, because I asked him today, how did you not know? how did you not know?
I know.
How did you not know this narrative was part of? That's who Jerry is.
Well, Clarence, but don't you think it's a little bit like? So I'm going to use this analogy. Going into marriage, well, that's going to be tough. How do you know that? Well, statistics show it. There's going to be some challenges. And then you get into a marriage or anything like that. But a serious relationship, you're like, oh, this is what this looks like. Okay.
I mean, it's like this. It's like in the Kardashians, Once you see Miles Austin and all these other people dating.
Lamar Odom, Reggie Bush, half the NBA.
And then you get into the marriage and like, gosh, I didn't know it was this much attention. How did you not know?
I don't think it's that. Clarence,
how did you not know?
But Clarence, I think it's one thing to know it, and then it's another thing to live it and to learn it. And then you're like, oh, you know it, but you don't really know it until you do it. And then all of a sudden you see the bill when it comes to being married to a Kardashian or working as the head coach under Jerry Jones. You're like, I'm getting a lot of money, but I'm getting a lot of money for a reason. Last quick question.
There it is. Mike McCarthy married a Kardashian.
There we go.
His name is Jones.
It means he'll be divorced in a week. Last quick question. I'll let you go. You're at the Combine. Cowboys have their first round draft pick is at 24, I believe, or 23? 24. Your gut right now, this has changed 10,000 times. Your gut, offensive lineman or different position at the first round pick?
Offensive lineman is the focus. They want to improve that offensive line. They're most likely going offense after spending so much energy and focus on defense last year. I would see guard, center, the A&M guard, the Iowa center. I'm looking offense at that position.
Okay.
It depends on what they do with Amari and then maybe receiver again. And so you can kill them for drafting another receiver.
Oh, don't worry.
You killed them over CD.
I did. I nailed that one too. That's Clarence E. Hill Jr. He is live at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, Indiana. Clarence, enjoy St. Elmo's. Get me a little steak. You don't have to bring it back. I don't think it'll.
I went to Harry and Izzy, St. Elmo's cousin, right next door.
Oh, that's right, next door. That's a good choice.
Right, and we had lunch with McCarthy the other day, and I had some shrimp cocktail.
Good for you. That's good. I'm impressed. Well, have a safe trip. Have a fun trip. Stay warm in that beautiful 64-degree February spring-like weather in Indianapolis, Indiana. For all of your Dallas Cowboys coverage needs, be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. We will see you next week here on Cowboys Overtime.
Thank you.